We are in Matthew chapter 24 today. Is you in or is you out? I've been trying all week. I heard that on a TV show somewhere, and the only reference I can find is to a movie called All In with Lou Gossett Jr., and he says, are you in or are you out? But I remember hearing somebody say it, bad grammar and all, is you in or is you out? Well, that's what the sermon is today, based on Matthew 24, 1 through 14. Let's read those scriptures along with me. If we get them up on the screen, I'm going to get my Bible open. I'm a little discombobulated today, so you hang in there with me. Matthew 24. Come on, Wes, get there. Verse 1. This is the last week of Jesus' ministry here on earth. Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came up to him to call his attention to the buildings. Do you see all these things? He asked. I tell you the truth, not one stone will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down. As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? Jesus answered, watch out that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, claiming I am the Christ, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of war, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. But he who stands firm to the end will be saved, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Sobering words from our Lord and Savior. Words that he shared as he knew what was about to happen, that his time on earth was drawing at an end. This is the last week. It occurs in the last week of Jesus' ministry here on earth. He was in Jerusalem worshiping in the temple. The disciples demonstrate their national pride by pointing out how great the temple and beautiful the temple was. And it was. It was being rebuilt by Herod of all people, and it's typically called Herod's temple because he built it, even though Herod wasn't a Jew and didn't worship, but he wanted this monument to his name. And it was impressive. They were using white marble, hewing white marble stone, and using that for the blocks. Very large. It was very beautiful. And it was especially important to them, meaningful to them, in light of the destruction that the temple had been through. We've talked many times before how they had been under dominion of nation after nation, starting primarily with Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar. And in that, the temple was destroyed. It was they called the abomination of desolation, where one of the kings sacrificed a pig on the altar, the very about most hurtful thing you could do to a Jew in their church, to sacrifice a pig. So the Jews of this day were really happy to see the temple being rebuilt, see it being rebuilt in splendor, and the disciples point that out to Jesus. But Jesus, as he typically does, uses their exuberance for a teaching moment. And a couple of times here, he doesn't even really respond to their question. But Jesus says, yes, a day is coming when one stone will be laid on another. I read a commentary by one person who said they went over there, and the different rabbis and stuff were taking him around, showing him the Wailing Wall, the oldest existing wall of the temple. And it was made of all different kinds of stones. And that's because it had been destroyed. In AD 70, Rome came against Jewish people revolting. They destroyed the town, they burned it, then they tore down the blocks, they tore everything down. And literally, as Jesus prophesied, not one stone was left on another. And so Jesus uses this to talk to them. And of course, they're shocked, they're grieved when they think about that. They hear finally their temple's being restored. Probably in their hearts they thought, maybe this is the start of a new time. Jesus is here. The temple's being restored. Things are going to get back to normal. And then Jesus, the one himself, says, it's going to be torn down. It's not going to be there. They responded kind of like we would respond, I think. When's this going to happen, Lord? They'd been hearing his teaching. He'd been trying to tell them that he had to go, but he would be coming back one day. And so they asked him, when's it going to happen? Again, Jesus doesn't answer. He doesn't respond to it. But he had their attention. One of the biggest challenges in teaching is to get people to pay attention. And when they ask a question, they generally want to know the answer, so they're listening. So Jesus had them there. But he takes off in a different direction, and he starts talking about the other problems that are going to come. He telescopes to the next truly important time, the end of the age. As Jesus is talking about that, he goes past all the way to the end times when he is going to return and establish his kingdom on earth. And with that segue, he moves from the present day, as they were looking around, to the future, to the end of the age. In the next verses, Christ warns us. He warned the disciples. He began by warning of the deception that will occur. False prophets will come. People were going to come in his name. Jesus came to proclaim the gospel, and he commissioned the church to proclaim that gospel until his return. And it's a battle against the gospel that is the thrust of Jesus' comments. There's a song by Carmen, pretty old song, and in it he does a little rap thing and talking about he was becoming a big star, and the devil came to him. He goes, well, the devil came to my house, knocked on my door, it starts out. And the devil talks to him and says, listen, I'm going to make you a big, big star, and you can talk about being good, you can talk about going to church, you can talk about doing all these things, but there's one thing you cannot do. Do not talk about Jesus. You see, that's the crux of it, folks. We can talk about being good people, treating each other right. We can talk about attending church. We can attend church. But Satan really gets involved. His powers really get involved when we proclaim the name of Jesus Christ. Because it is Jesus who defeats him. It is Jesus who redeems us, who makes us worthy to be in heaven. And it is Jesus who keeps us from Satan's hell. And so Jesus here is proclaiming the gospel, the good news, and he commissions his church to do that. And so enemies arise and speak up. And so God, in this case specifically Jesus, does turn his attention to those last days, the days that precede his return, and ultimately the judgment. He proceeds to describe the trouble that's going to come, but he does it in broad strokes, wars and rumors of wars. And I wonder, some of you who are in your 70s and 80s and 90s, thinking about your time here on earth, how many wars can you remember? Maybe some you just heard about, but thinking about our country going from the Civil War, Spanish-American War, we had the World War I, World War II, Korean conflict, Vietnam War. We're now in a war with Iran. There's been multiple wars, and that's just the United States. There are many other wars all around the world. There is no end to fighting. And it's interesting to stop And we have that perspective, those who have lived through some of those. Jesus goes on to describe the decline in our culture, false prophets, an increase in wickedness, the people's love of God cooling. And I don't think any of us can deny that we're seeing that today. You know, as I thought about these false prophets, and I thought about, again, some that I've heard as I've been growing up, and one of the biggest ones that I think of, and you're aware of, is Jim Jones, who got such a big following, and he took them down to South America, and they were going to turn things over. They were going to turn the world around, but then he was under investigation by the Senate, and he ended up leading all of them to drink poison Kool-Aid, and most of them dying. There are several who have come up in this world and talked about being the Messiah. Even my limited understanding of history, you could even say Hitler was doing that to his people as he was proclaiming to them how they could be a master race, the race to rule the world. He wasn't calling himself the Messiah, but he was taking that position of being the supreme leader. There have been several, but most of those get fallen out. There's another word, it's by, in a book, Evidence That Demands a Verdict, and there was a song I heard True sing called Lord, Liar, Lunatic. And said, the song goes and the text goes that there's three decisions you can make about Jesus Christ. He might be a liar. There have been a lot of liars out there, big lies, but most lies are found out with enough time. Could be a lunatic making tremendous claims, but again, lunatics are soon figured out. People quit following them. Or he is Lord, and he is the Lord, of course. But there are many liars out there leading people astray. But a lot of them, like I said, they don't call themselves, I'm the Messiah. They don't take that title. But what they do is they supplant Jesus with their teaching. They follow what Satan did in the garden through the serpent when he just injected some doubt. When he talked to Eve and said, did God really say? He didn't come out directly against God. He didn't say God was lying, but he just injected that question, did God really say? And as I peruse Facebook and YouTube, I get frustrated many times because one of the things to do in order to get followers is somebody will have a headline that says, people have believed all wrong about this verse, or they've thought the wrong thing. And sometimes I'll take the time to see what they're talking about. When I get through it, I say, nobody really believes that. Yeah, maybe there's some very beginning people in their faith that are led astray, but scholars know, people that study the Bible know that's not true. But they will elevate what they're doing above what God's saying, and they'll say, I've got the right truth. I've got the right insight. I've got what you need to listen to. And so they're drawing attention to themselves. They're saying, forget what you've been taught. Listen to what I say. That's a false Messiah. That's a false prophet raising himself above God. And those are all around. And we have to be very careful of that deception. We have to know what's going on. Even though the words that are there, we need to listen. You know, as we listen to Jesus, as he's talking about things, we can see that today. Certainly churches are falling into disrepair and disuse. On the news just this week, I heard a report on there that the Catholic Church, the Catholic Diocese, is looking to close some of their churches in Louisville for lack of attendance. We see it happening. As I drive around, I see churches that are, you go in the Highlands, there's a church in the Highlands that's now a restaurant and some apartments. There are some that are overgrown with weeds and aren't used anymore. And we see this to dismay and shock. It's happening. People are turning away. There is disrepair. Attendance is declining. Baptisms are down. Ministries are canceled. So it's easy for us to think, for others to think, what's the use? Some will say, people don't care about church or God. The things that I love, Jesus, God, His church, and the hymns, are rejected by our society. I feel like a reject and an outcast because of that. And to top it all, Jesus said, it's only going to get worse. I might as well quit trying. And too many of God's people have quit trying. They've lost the faith. It's gotten too hard to keep going. Excuse me, I'm having trouble getting comfortable here. But even if those words aren't spoken, even if people don't verbalize, I'm going to just give up, I'm quitting, actions speak louder than words. We're seeing people not attend. You know, I've been thinking about our churches, and sometimes in our denominational material, they'll talk about how the cooperative program funds are up, baptisms are up, these kind of things. But then I stop and pause to think of really how much we've lost, how much has changed. All of us pretty much grew up in an era that Sunday morning was one meeting out of the week. We often came back Sunday night for discipleship training and then another sermon. We were back in Wednesday night for prayer meeting and another message from God's Word. Those have pretty much fallen by the wayside. Sunday morning is about all we take time for anymore. And that's not the world turning away. That's Christians making God less and less of their lives. So Jesus did say all that. But in verse 14, he goes on to say, this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Folks, the end isn't here yet. And so Jesus is continuing to work. Jesus is continuing to save souls, continuing to turn lives around. And that means that he intends to us to continue doing that. When Jesus was here on earth, he came to seek and to save that which was lost. And he commissioned his church to take that message. He commissioned us in Matthew 28, go ye therefore unto all nations. He commissioned us in Acts 1:8, and you shall be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, and the othermost parts of the earth. That was the task he gave his church. The end isn't here yet. It may come any time, may come any day. The Bible doesn't tell us the time. A lot of people have guessed about that. A lot of people have said this is the day, and as soon as they say this is the day, we know that's not the day, because Jesus said no man knows the hour nor the angels, only the Father above. But he does tell us that the gospel is going to go out, and when all the world has heard the gospel, then the end will be near. God makes sure that everybody has had the opportunity to hear the gospel, to receive him. And we got to be close to that with the advent of broadcast media such as we do today. Even our sermons are going around the world, and I've shared with you people in Singapore, in India, Pakistan, South America, tune in to our messages here. So we have that effect. It's not over yet. And further, Jesus says in verse 13, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. So in those verses, Jesus says, I'm not quitting. I'm still working. And he's looking for those who will stand with him, who will continue working to proclaim the gospel, who will live for Christ when they're the oddball who is mocked and ridiculed for sticking to God's value, who will risk their life for Christ. I'm not talking about physically laying down your life. But Jesus, while some have had to do that, there are some martyrs. It's really a deeper meaning when we lay down our life. It means we set aside our desires. We set aside what we want to do. We lay down that part of our life and dedicate ourselves to God. That's the laying down he talks about. Jesus wonders who will do that, who will surrender to his service and devotion. So in that, Jesus is asking of us, is you in or is you out? Are you a spectator or a participant? Are you part of the solution or part of the problem? And that's not some rhetorical question. That's only answered yes by those who accept the call to be a missionary. That's not what you have to do. God calls people to be a missionary. He may or may not do that to you. Probably won't at this stage of your life, but he may. It's not a question of whether you become a pastor and do what I do, but will you serve him with all your life? Will you be a part of the program? Jesus outlines there in the first part of chapter 14 what's going to happen. But he goes on there at the end saying, but the program is going to continue. The program is going to move on. And he wonders who's going to be part of the program. I'm very joyous. There's a group of people here who aren't quitting, and they've got every human reason to quit. Instead of developing new ministries, they're developing new ministries or invigorating old ones. Some of you may have been asked to participate. We're actively working on ways to reach our community for Christ, to tell our community we care about them, and that we seek to provide some real practical solutions. We're working to invite them to a back-to-school Sunday on the 30th that I mentioned. We're inviting and encouraging them to make church attendance part of their schedule and giving them real reasons why they should, the benefit to their children and themselves. Last Sunday we had a meeting for our fall festival, and we had 10 come and meet. My heart was encouraged. Everyone engaged with ideas of how we could do that. There was excitement about the process, and we filled up the marker board with ideas, and we've already got much planned in that regard. We're working towards our fall festival, October 17th, and we're already arranging things. We've reserved the North Central Baptist Network outreach trailer that has a bouncy in it. It has a snow cone machine, cotton candy machine, popcorn, and other things to have here. I've been able to secure an agreement from a live band to come and play for us, people that you know. We're going ahead with other plans. We have a list of games that the church has had that can let the children play, and there's more. And there's so much more that is being developed to make CBC a place where people can come and hear about God, where people can come and be welcomed and accepted, to have a place. You know, I kind of hate that it was a bar that had that song where everybody knows your name. That ought to be church, where everybody feels loved by everybody. Everybody's received. Everybody notices when someone's out, and we care about them. We accept them. I think in life, one of the things we all really want is acceptance. We don't like admitting our faults. We don't like facing up to them, but we know we have them. But we want to be accepted in spite of that. Not telling us you're okay, but just accept me where I am and then help me grow. So our fall festival is Saturday, October 17th from 4 to 8. And we're going to need everybody we can get to be with a game, to hand out prizes, to control the flow of that, to help us hand out snacks. Just, you know what we do. You can be a part of that. So with all that we got going on, and there's much, much more, I could spend your day, your afternoon, telling you the plans that are in the works. You know about the community garden. That's for our community. This week or next week, we had letters go out to all the teachers at Campbellsburg Elementary, reminding them of the garden, telling them about things they can grow as a fall crop. Some of them expressed that interest in doing that for the children. We're working on the basement. It's pretty well finished. We've let the city know, and we've given them keys so that in the event of a storm, there's a place, a safe place, people can come. It's meeting a practical need. There are other things we're working on to be a place where people can come and be nourished, where we can have a chance to meet them, to introduce ourselves, to get to know them, for them to get to know us. So with all this stuff going on, the question again for here is you in or is you out? Are you going to be a spectator or a participant? Are you going to be part of the solution or part of the problem? Or are you going to be a nattering nabob of negativity? I like that phrase. Nattering nabob of negativity, mocking the attempt and criticizing those who are trying. I know many of you can say, I've been involved, I've done that, and that's true, and we appreciate that, but we still need you. We need your ideas, your help, your involvement. Some of you can also say, well, I'm already doing a lot, and that's true. But will you help a little more? Will you make a little more time for Christ? Back to School Sunday is in 2 weeks. I had them bring in front of me the flyers, over 1,000 flyers, about 1,020 flyers. We printed in office. We've sat and folded them, put a piece of tape on them, gotten them ready to mail. And they're going to go out this week to all of Campbellsburg, Turner Station, and Port Royal, inviting them to our back to school. It's got that article in there telling them why church is good for them and their children. That's going out, but we need you to invite your neighbors. You're going to start seeing the ad on Facebook, letting them know about it. We plan to give them materials they can use in school for back to school, paper, notebooks, pencils, these kind of things. We're looking at buying New Testaments to give every child a New Testament that they can have. We're looking at other things, and we've been blessed. My daughter was talking to one of the children's directors at Little Flock, and they said, hey, you know anybody that could use some shirts? They have a lot of shirts left over from Vacation Bible School. And she said, let me talk to my dad. And I said, absolutely. So in our conference room, I've got a box this big of shirts that they had for Vacation Bible School left over that talk about Jesus and who he is, that we can give these people. God is providing. But we need your help in that. Talking to neighbors, talking to those who have drifted away, letting them know we miss them. I worked for a pastor once, and he would often get on the phone and say, I just needed to call. I missed hearing your voice. It became kind of a trite phrase. I heard him say it many times. But it is encouraging to those to know, hey, they do know I'm not there. They do miss me. They do want to hear me. So you can pick up the phone and call and let them know we'd love to see them, to come on back. We need some to come early and help us get ready in 2 weeks, to be in small group Bible study, to be ready to greet our guests with a warm smile and a handshake. We plan to have coffee, juice, water, and some pastries here. I shared last week that on any given Sunday, we have 15 to 20 of our people out. So I'm asking you to determine to be here on the 30th, that we be here to support that. There's other things planned that I can't reveal because it involves other people to make that Sunday a great day. We're making plans for Fall Festival. We need those people to man games, to greet people, to help in whatever way. We've scheduled a work day for Saturday the 19th to put spit and polish on our facility. Will you go ahead and get that on your calendar? Arrange that morning to come. We need each one. There are some that haven't been here for a work day, and several times. We need you. Your church needs you. Another for us to move ahead. There are the opportunities that I mentioned on August 27th of going to the equip training so that you can receive training to help your church grow, to help you reach people for Christ, to learn how we can proclaim Christ. On Friday, the September 18th, I planned another movie night. Many of you told me that came how much you enjoyed that night. It was a fun night of fellowship, and it was a good night. I hope you'll choose to come. We enjoy being with you. I hope you enjoy being with us. Friday the 18th. Put it on your calendar, the 19th. So a group of us are saying, I'm not quitting. I'm not giving up. I hope you'll be part of that group. All that we do not to beat ourselves on the chest, not to beat our chest, not to pat ourselves on the back, not to say, look how good we've done, but to say, look how good he's done. What a good Lord he is. And he will help you like he's helped me. That's what we're doing this for.